Dr. Minji Lee had been working the night shift at Galactic Medical Station Kepler 7 for 15 years, and she thought she had seen everything. The station floated in neutral space, where ships from every corner of the galaxy came for medical help. Tonight felt like any other quiet night. Minji walked through the empty corridors, checking patient charts and making her rounds. The soft hum of life support systems was the only sound breaking the silence. Then the alarm screamed to life. Red lights flashed across every wall. Her communicator crackled with urgent voices. All medical personnel to Docking Bay 3. Emergency crash landing. Multiple casualties expected. Minji grabbed her medical kit and ran. Her boots pounded against the metal floor as she raced through the corridors. Other doctors and nurses emerged from various rooms, all heading in the same direction. But Minji was faster. She had always been fast. When she reached the docking bay, smoke filled the air. A small smuggler vessel had crashed through the outer shields and now lay broken against the bay floor. Sparks flew from damaged electrical systems. The smell of burning metal stung her nose. Security teams worked to open the vessel's doors. Minji pushed through, ignoring the warnings about possible explosions. Inside the ship, emergency lights flickered weakly. 2 bodies lay in the cockpit, smugglers, both dead on impact. Their faces were covered with makeshift masks, and their clothes suggested they had been running illegal cargo. Minji moved past them into the cargo hold. Broken containers littered the floor. Strange liquids leaked from cracked canisters. Then she heard it, a sound that made her freeze. A soft whimpering, like a wounded animal, came from beneath a pile of debris. She pulled away twisted metal and shattered glass. Her hands worked quickly despite the sharp edges cutting through her gloves. Finally, she uncovered a small containment pod, cracked down the middle. Inside lay something that made her heart stop, a dragon hatchling. The creature was no larger than her forearm. Its scales were silver but dulled by pain and sickness. Tiny wings, translucent like delicate paper, twitched weakly. The hatchling's breathing came in short, desperate gasps. Its amber eyes, far too large for its small head, looked up at her with a mixture of fear and hope. Minji pulled out her medical scanner. The readings made her stomach drop. Severe radiation poisoning, internal bleeding, multiple organ failures. The scanner estimated the creature had less than 10 minutes to live. Her communicator burst to life. Dr. Lee, we have identified the cargo. It's a draconian hatchling. Repeat, draconian. Protocol 7 is now in effect. Step away from the creature immediately and evacuate the area. Minji's hand froze over the comm button. She knew Protocol 7. Everyone in the galaxy knew it. The draconian race was ancient and incredibly powerful. They were also fiercely private and protective of their young. 300 years ago, the Galactic Council had signed the Treaty of Non-Interference with endangered sentient species. Draconians were at the top of that list. Unauthorized contact with Draconian, especially a juvenile, was considered a serious crime. It could trigger diplomatic incidents. It could start wars. The protocol was simple. Report the creature's location and wait for proper authorities to handle it. Do not touch. Do not treat. Do not interfere. Dr. Lee, acknowledge immediately. The voice on her communicator grew more urgent. Station security is en route. You must evacuate now. The hatchling made a weak crying sound. Its small claws scraped against the broken pod, trying to reach toward her. Blood seeped from wounds along its belly. Its breathing grew more shallow with each passing second. Minji looked at the creature's eyes. They reminded her of the children she had treated over the years. Human children, alien children, it didn't matter. Those eyes held the same universal expression, a desperate plea for help, for someone to take away the pain, to make things better. Her medical training screamed one thing. The galaxy's laws screamed another. Dr. Lee, this is your final warning. Step away now. Minji reached for her communicator. Her fingers found the button. Then she looked at the dying hatchling one more time. Its breathing was barely visible now. Maybe 30 seconds left. Maybe less. She pressed a button on her communicator. The device's light went dark. She had turned it off completely. "I'm sorry," she whispered, though she wasn't sure she was apologizing to the station authorities or to herself. "But I'm a doctor, and you're a patient." Minji pulled out her emergency medical supplies. Her hands moved with practiced precision. She had no idea if human medicine would work on draconian biology, but she had to try. The radiation poisoning needed to be flushed from the creature's system first. She administered a powerful detoxification agent, adjusting the dosage based on the hatchling's tiny body weight. The creature whimpered as the needle pierced its scales. Minji worked quickly, setting up a portable life support system. She attached monitoring devices to track the hatchling's vital signs. The readings were bad, but they stopped declining. That was something. Hours passed. Minji barely noticed the time. She mixed medications, adjusted treatments, and constantly monitored her small patient. Sweat dripped down her face. Her hands ached. But slowly and possibly, the hatchling's breathing grew stronger. As dawn approached, the creature's scales began to shimmer. Color returned to them, transforming from dull gray to brilliant silver. The hatchling opened its eyes fully for the first time. It made a soft sound, almost like a purr, and reached out with one tiny claw to touch Minji's hand. "You're going to be okay," Minji whispered, allowing herself a small smile. "You're going to be just fine." The cargo bay doors exploded inward. Armed security forces poured through, followed by officials in the formal robes of the Galactic Council. At their head walked Ambassador Hyun Wukong, his expression grave and sad. "Dr. Minji Lee," he said, his voice echoing through the cargo bay. "You are under arrest for violation of the Treaty of Non-Interference with Endangered Sentient Species. Please come with us peacefully." The hatchling cried out as guards moved toward them. Minji held the small creature close for just a moment longer, feeling its tiny heartbeat against her chest. She had saved a life, and now she would pay the price for it. The Galactic Tribunal chamber stretched out like a massive cathedral made of dark metal and glowing crystal. 7 raised platforms circled the room, each holding a representative from the most powerful species in the galaxy. Their eyes all focused on one spot in the center, where Dr. Minji Lee stood alone on a small circular platform. She still wore her medical uniform. The blood stains from the hatchling had dried into dark patches on the white fabric. They had not given her time to change or clean up. The guards had brought her directly from the cargo bay to this place. Minji's hands were bound with electronic restraints that hummed softly. Her feet ached from standing, but there was no chair. Prisoners did not get to sit. Above her, the 7 tribunal members sat in silence. Each one wore ceremonial robes that marked their importance. Their faces showed no kindness, no understanding, only cold judgment. The prosecutor entered from a side door. His name was Vexol, and he was a chither, an insectoid species with multiple eyes and clicking mandibles. His exoskeleton gleamed under the harsh lights. When he walked, his feet made sharp tapping sounds against the floor that echoed through the enormous room. "Members of the tribunal," Vexol began, his voice buzzing and harsh. "We are here to judge a crime of the highest severity. Dr. Minji Lee has violated the Treaty of Non-Interference with Endangered Sentient Species. She made unauthorized contact with a draconian hatchling. She administered medical treatment without permission from draconian authorities. She ignored direct orders from station security. She silenced her communicator and acted alone." Vexol turned to face Minji. His multiple eyes reflected the lights, making them look like small flames. "Do you deny these actions?" Minji took a breath. Her voice came out steady despite her fear. "No, I don't deny any of it." A murmur ran through the chamber. The tribunal members leaned forward with interest. "You confess?" Vexol seemed surprised. "You admit your guilt freely?" "I admit what I did," Minji said, "but I don't call it crime. I call it my job. I'm a doctor. A child was dying. I saved that child. That's what doctors do." Vexol's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation in his species. "You call it child. It was a draconian. Do you understand what you have done? The draconian race is one of the most ancient and powerful in the galaxy. They have remained isolated for 3 centuries. They trust no one with their young. And you A human, one of the newest species to join the galactic community. You dared to touch one of their hatchlings? I saved one of their hatchlings, Minji corrected quietly. You may have started a war. Vexol's voice rose to a screech. The Draconians could see your actions as an attack, as theft, as contamination of their bloodline. They could descend upon us with their ancient weapons and destroy everything. Millions could die because of your arrogance. A new voice spoke from one of the platforms. It belonged to Ambassador Hyun Wukong, the human representative on the tribunal. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. Dr. Lee acted to save a life. Surely that counts for something. It counts for nothing. Vexol spun to face the ambassador. The law is clear. The treaty was written for exactly this reason, to prevent well-meaning individuals from causing catastrophic incidents. Compassion is not a defense when the safety of the entire galaxy is at stake. Another tribunal member spoke. She was of Altari, a species that looked almost like living water held in a humanoid shape. Her voice sounded like waves lapping at a shore. The prosecutor is correct. The law exists for protection. Dr. Lee's intentions do not matter. Only her actions matter. Minji felt her chest tighten. She had known this would be difficult, but hearing them speak about the dying hatchling as nothing more than a political problem made her anger rise. I took an oath, she said suddenly, her voice cutting through the chamber. When I became a doctor, I swore to help those who are sick or injured. I swore to preserve life. I swore that I would not let someone die when I had the power to save them. That oath didn't say, only save humans, or only save species approved by the Council. It said save lives. All lives. Your oath means nothing here. Vexol clicked forward until he stood directly below her platform. Your human emotions, your human morality, they do not apply to galactic law. You think you are noble? You are foolish. You risk millions to save one. One life matters. Minji said simply, if we forget that, if we let politics and fear stop us from helping those in need, then what are we? What kind of galaxy have we built? The tribunal members conferred quietly among themselves. Minji could see Ambassador Kong arguing with the others, his gestures urgent and desperate, but the other 6 faces remained hard and unmoved. Finally, the head of the tribunal spoke. He was a Matherian, tall and thin with skin like polished stone. Dr. Minji Lee, this tribunal finds you guilty of violating the Treaty of Non-Interference with endangered sentient species. You will be sentenced to permanent exile on prison colony Theta 9. Your medical license is hereby revoked. You will never practice medicine again. The words hit Minji like physical blows. Never practice medicine again. Everything she had worked for, everything she was gone. Furthermore, the Matherian continued, the Draconian hatchling will be transported immediately to the Draconian home world. All evidence of contact will be documented and sent to Draconian authorities with our deepest apologies for this incident. Wait, Minji said, her voice cracking. Can I at least say goodbye? The tribunal members looked at each other. Finally, they nodded. Guards brought the hatchling into the chamber. It had grown slightly in the 3 days since Minji had saved it. Its scales were bright silver now, shimmering with health. When the small dragon saw Minji, it cried out a sound of pure joy and tried to fly toward her. But the guards held it back with electronic restraints. I named her Hannah, Minji said softly, tears running down her face. It means one in Korean, because every one life matters. The hatchling struggled against the restraints, crying and reaching toward Minji with its small claws. The sound broke Minji's heart. That's enough? Vexol said coldly. Take them both away. Guards pulled Minji toward one door, while others carried the screaming hatchling toward another. The last thing Minji saw before the doors closed was Hannah's amber eyes, wide with confusion and fear, wondering why the person who saved her was leaving. That night, in a cold holding cell, Minji sat on a hard bench and wept. She had lost her career, her freedom, and her future. But even through the tears, even through the pain, she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She would make the same choice again. The alarms began exactly at dawn. Station Commander Sun-Ho Park was drinking his morning coffee when every screen in his office turned red. Warning signals blared from speakers throughout Kepler 7. His cup fell from his hand, shattering on the floor, but he barely noticed. His eyes were locked on the main display screen. Ships, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They appeared through warp gates like stars being born, flashes of light that solidified into massive vessels. The station's sensors went wild, trying to catalog them all. The defense AI's voice, normally calm and measured, now spoke with urgent repetition. Draconian warships detected. Draconian warships detected. Draconian warships detected. Commander Park's hands shook as he activated the emergency communication system. All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. Throughout the station, people stopped what they were doing. Doctors abandoned their morning rounds. Engineers dropped their tools. Families grabbed their children and ran for the emergency shelters. No one had seen a Draconian fleet in 300 years. There were stories, legends really, about what their ships could do, about worlds that had been reduced to ash in minutes. In the emergency council chamber, the 7 tribunal members gathered with unprecedented speed. Ambassador Hyun-Woo Kong arrived still, wearing his sleeping clothes. Vexol's exoskeleton looked dull. He had not had time for his morning polish. The others looked equally unprepared and frightened. "What do they want?" asked the Voltari representative, her watery form rippling with anxiety. "Perhaps they haven't discovered what happened yet," suggested another council member hopefully. "Perhaps this is coincidence." Vexol made a harsh clicking sound. There is no such thing as coincidence when dealing with Draconians. They know. They have come for revenge. On the main viewing screen, the Draconian ships moved into position. They were unlike any vessels the modern galaxy produced. They looked organic, as if they had been grown rather than built. Each ship was covered in scales that shimmered with energy shields. Some vessels had what looked like wings folded against their sides. The largest ship, a dreadnought that dwarfed even the station itself, moved in front of the fleet and positioned itself directly in front of Kepler 7's main docking port. The ship looked like a cathedral made of living metal and ancient scales. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Incoming transmission," reported the communications officer, her voice barely above a whisper. On screen, Commander Park ordered. At first, there was only static. Then a voice came through, deep resonant, speaking in a language so old that the station's computers took several seconds to translate it. When the translation came, every person in the council chamber felt their blood turn cold. "We have come for the healer. Release her to us, or we will take her by force. You have 1 hour to comply." The transmission ended. Silence filled the council chamber. It was a kind of silence that comes before a storm, heavy and suffocating. "They want Dr. Lee," Ambassador Kong said, stating the obvious. "They know what happened." "How?" Vexol's voice carried a note of panic. "We sent the hatchling back yesterday. Our message of apology was carefully worded. How could they possibly know the details already?" "Dragons know many things," said the Matherian tribunal head quietly. "That is why we fear them." Another council member, a Krillian with too many tentacles, spoke up. "We must refuse their demand. If we give them Dr. Lee, we show weakness. We show that they can threaten us, and we will bow. Every species in the galaxy will see us as cowards. And if we refuse, they will destroy the station." Ambassador Kong shot back. "There are 15,000 people on Kepler 7. Families, children. Are you willing to sacrifice them all for pride?" "We should fight," Vexol said suddenly. "Call for reinforcements from a galactic defense fleet. We outnumber them if we—" "No, we don't," Commander Park interrupted, his voice hollow. He was reading reports from his tactical team. "Our sensors have been analyzing their ships. Each Draconian vessel outputs more power than our entire defense fleet combined. And that's just what we can measure. We have no data on their weapons capabilities because no one has seen them used in 3 centuries. Every record we have about Draconian military power is ancient history." "Then what do you suggest?" Vexol demanded. Before anyone could answer, another transmission came through. This time it included a holographic image. The council members stepped back instinctively as a massive figure materialized in the center of their chamber. It was a dragon, not a small hatchling like the one they had sent away. This was a fully grown draconian in his true form. His scales were burnished gold, each one the size of a shield. His eyes glowed like molten metal. Massive horns curved back from his head, and wings that could blot out the sun folded against his body. Even as just a hologram, his presence filled the room with power. When he spoke, his voice was like thunder rolling across mountains. I am Taeyung Flameheart, Dragon Lord of the Eastern Reaches and Guardian of the Eternal Flame. I speak for the Draconian High Council. Every member of the tribunal tried to speak at once, but Taeyung raised one clawed hand, and they all fell silent. You punished the one who saved my granddaughter, he said, each word carefully pronounced. 3 days ago, smugglers stole Hannah from our world. They hoped to sell her to collectors who trade in rare creatures. We searched desperately across the stars. We feared she would die before we could find her. He paused, his ancient eyes moving across each tribunal member. Then we learned that a human doctor found her dying and chose to save her. This doctor violated your laws to preserve a life. She risked everything, her career, her freedom, to help a child she did not know and had no reason to save. Lord Taeyung, the Matherian had began carefully. We understand your gratitude, but Dr. Lee broke our most sacred treaty. We had no choice but to. You had every choice, Taeyung interrupted, his voice harder now. You chose to punish mercy. You chose to make compassion a crime. You chose to imprison someone who honored the most fundamental law of any civilized species. Protect the young. The dragon leaned forward, and even though he was just a hologram, everyone in the room felt the urge to step back. In my culture, we have a prophecy. It speaks of a healer from the stars who will show us that not all young races have forgotten what it means to be truly civilized. Your Dr. Lee has fulfilled that prophecy. What do you want? Vexo asked, his voice barely audible. Taeyung's expression was unreadable. I want you to release Minji Lee immediately. I want you to restore her honor. And I want you to apologize for treating a hero like a criminal. And if we refuse? Vexo asked, though they all knew the answer. The dragon smiled, showing teeth like swords. Then we will take her, and your station will learn why the galaxy fears to anger dragons. The hologram vanished. The council members looked at each other. Outside the windows, the dragon fleet waited like a storm about to break. They had 1 hour to decide the fate of everyone on Kepler 7. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Everyone spoke at once, their voices rising in panic and anger. Some demanded they fight. Others insisted they negotiate. A few simply sat frozen, staring at the window where the massive dragon fleet waited in silence. Ambassador Hyun Wukong watched them all argue and felt a deep sadness. These were supposed to be the wisest beings in the galaxy, yet they sounded like frightened children. He had voted against Minji's punishment, but he had been outvoted. Now everyone would pay the price for their fear. Then someone else stood up. Ambassador Jun Kim was the other human representative on the council. He was younger than Kong, with sharp eyes and a quiet manner. Most of the time, the other council members barely noticed him. Humans were too new to the galactic community to have much voice in important matters. But now Jun Kim cleared his throat and spoke loudly enough to cut through the noise. I have something to say. The arguing slowly died down. Vexol turned to him with visible irritation. This is not the time for speeches. Ambassador Kim, we need solutions. Then let me give you one. Jun said calmly. He walked to the center of the room, where Taeyung's hologram had stood moments before. For the past 50 years, since humanity joined the Galactic Council, you have treated us like children who don't understand how the universe works. Ambassador Kim, please. The Matherian head tried to interrupt. Jun held up his hand. No, you will listen. You have called humanity reckless. You have called us emotional. You have called us naive and dangerous. You restricted how many worlds we could colonize. You limited how many ships we could build. You gave us the smallest voice in council decisions because you said we lack wisdom. Vexol's mandibles clicked impatiently. What is your point? June turned and gestured toward the window where the dragon fleet waited like a storm on the horizon. My point is this. What Dr. Lee did, what you called a crime worthy of permanent exile, the Draconians call it worthy of an army. An entire fleet crossed the galaxy to defend one human who saved a child. The room fell silent. Everyone stared at June as his words sank in. Dr. Lee saw a dying creature and chose to help it. June continued. She didn't think about treaties or politics. She didn't calculate the risks to her career or her freedom. She saw suffering and she acted to end it. You call that reckless emotion. The Draconians call it the highest honor. Ambassador Kong felt pride rising in his chest. He wanted to stand and applaud, but he remained seated and let June speak. Maybe, June said quietly, humanity's compassion isn't a weakness. Maybe it's exactly what this cold, bureaucratic galaxy needs. Maybe we don't need less emotion. Maybe we need more. The Voltari representative's watery form rippled thoughtfully. You make an interesting argument, Ambassador Kim, but it does not change the law. Dr. Lee violated the treaty. Then change the law. June's voice rose with passion. A law that punishes mercy is a bad law. A treaty that makes saving a child illegal is a treaty that should be broken. You cannot simply break treaties because they are inconvenient. Vexol protested. That is chaos. That is anarchy. No, said Ambassador Kong, standing up to join June. That is growth. That is evolution. We write laws to protect people, not to control them. When a law causes more harm than good, we must have the courage to change it. The other council members looked uncomfortable. They whispered among themselves, their faces showing doubt and confusion. Even if we wanted to release Dr. Lee, the Matherian head said slowly, the damage is done. She has been convicted. To overturn that conviction would make us look weak and inconsistent. You will look much weaker when the dragons destroy the station because you were too proud to admit a mistake. June said bluntly. Before anyone could respond, Commander Park's voice came through the communication system. Council members, you have 30 minutes remaining. The Dragon Fleet is powering up their weapons. Our sensors detect energy readings we cannot even classify. Please advise immediately. The urgency in his voice made the decision clear. They were running out of time. Vexol sagged in his seat. His usual arrogance had evaporated. We have no choice. Release Dr. Lee to the dragons. Apologize. Hope they do not decide to destroy us anyway. No, June said firmly. Not like that. If we release her like prisoners handing over a hostage, we learn nothing. We must release her with honor. We must admit our mistake publicly. We must thank her for what she did. Thank her? Vexol sounded horrified. She broke the law. And saved a life, Ambassador Kong added. The law was wrong. We were wrong. It takes courage to admit that, but it takes wisdom to learn from it. One by one, the council members nodded. Even Vexol finally lowered his head in agreement. The Matherian had activated his communication device. Bring Dr. Minji Lee to council chambers immediately. Tell her she is free. 20 minutes later, guards escorted Minji into the chamber. She looked exhausted and confused. Her wrists still bore marks from the restraints. When she saw the council members, she straightened her shoulders, preparing for more judgment. Instead, Ambassador Kong walked forward and bowed deeply to her. Dr. Lee, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I apologize. We were wrong to punish you. You honor the highest calling of any healer, to preserve life. We should have celebrated your courage, not condemned it. Minji stared at him in shock. I don't understand. Look outside, June said gently, gesturing to the window. Minji walked to the glass and gasped. The dragon fleet stretched across the stars like a net of glowing lights. She had never seen anything so beautiful and terrifying at the same time. They came for you, June explained. Lord Taeyong himself demands your release. He calls you a hero. He says you fulfilled an ancient prophecy. Tears filled Minji's eyes. Where's Hannah? Is she safe? As if an answer, the communication system activated. Taeyung's voice filled the chamber. Your hour is nearly complete. What is your answer? The Matherian head stepped forward. Lord Taeyung, we release Dr. Minji Lee to you with our deepest apologies. We were wrong to punish her. We recognize now that she acted with honor and courage. We restore her medical license and clear all charges against her. There was a long pause. Then Taeyung's voice came back, softer now. A wise decision. Send her to Docking Bay 3. My personal shuttle awaits her. Minji looked at the council members, then at Ambassadors Kong and Kim. Thank you, she whispered, as guards escorted her toward the docking bay. June called after her. Dr. Lee, make us proud out there. Show the galaxy what humanity can be. Minji smiled through her tears and nodded. In the docking bay, a beautiful dragon-shaped shuttle waited. As Minji approached, the door opened and a silver blur shot out. Hannah, now twice the size she'd been, flew directly into Minji's arms. The young dragon wrapped her wings around her and chirped with pure joy. Behind Hannah, a massive golden dragon stepped into view. Taeyung bowed his head to Minji, a gesture of profound respect. Welcome, healer, he said. Your true journey begins now. 3 months had passed since the Dragon Fleet arrived at Kepler 7. 3 months since Minji's life changed forever. Now she stood on a balcony carved from living crystal, watching the sky of the draconian home world. Mountains floated in the air, held aloft by ancient magic that no one fully understood. Waterfalls flowed upward from lakes below, forming rivers in the sky. Dragons of every color soared through purple clouds, their scales catching the light of 3 suns that hung low on the horizon. It was the most beautiful place Minji had ever seen. Behind her, in the Crystal Palace, young dragons attended their morning lessons. Minji had established the first interspecies medical school in galactic history. Dragon healers learned human techniques, while human doctors studied ancient draconian healing methods. The exchange of knowledge was transforming medicine across the galaxy. Teacher Minji, a small voice called out. A young green dragon poked her head through the doorway. The new students from Earth have arrived. They are waiting in the greeting hall. Minji smiled. Thank you, Era. Tell them I will be there shortly. The little dragon nodded and flew away, her wings still awkward with youth. Minji watched her go and felt pride swell in her chest. 3 months ago, no dragon would call a human teacher. 3 months ago, humans and dragons lived in completely separate worlds. Now everything was different. Footsteps echoed behind her, heavy, deliberate footsteps that made the crystal floor vibrate slightly. Minji turned to see Taeyung approaching. The massive golden dragon had taken his humanoid form today, standing nearly 8 feet tall with scales that gleamed like polished metal along his arms and neck. You look thoughtful, he observed, his voice still carrying that deep resonance even in his smaller form. I was just thinking about how much has changed, Minji admitted. Sometimes it feels like a dream. Taeyung stood beside her at the balcony railing. Dreams do not leave scars on your wrists. He gestured to the faint marks that still linger from her restraints. What happened to you is real. What you did for Hannah was real. And what we are building together now is real. As if summoned by her name, Hannah appeared in the sky. She was nearly full-grown now, her silver scales brilliant in the sunlight. She had grown so fast that Minji sometimes had trouble recognizing the tiny, dying creature she had saved. Hannah performed a graceful loop in the air before landing on the balcony with practiced ease. Mother Minji, Hannah said warmly. Dragons could not smile the way humans did, but Minji had learned to read joy in their eyes. The Earth delegation has brought news from the Galactic Council. Good news or bad news? Minji asked. Good news, I think, Hannah replied. They wish to discuss expanding the medical exchange program to 5 more species. Taeyung made a rumbling sound that Minji had learned was dragon laughter. 5 more species want to learn from the woman. They imprisoned 3 months ago. The irony is delicious. Minji couldn't help but laugh too. I suppose it is. The truth was that humanity's position in the galaxy had transformed completely. The alliance with the Draconians had changed everything. When the most powerful and ancient race in the galaxy declared humans their friends, other species paid attention. Suddenly, the naive, emotional humans were sought after as diplomats, advisors, and teachers. Trade agreements that had been denied for decades were suddenly approved. Colonization restrictions were lifted. Human representatives now had equal voice in council decisions, all because one doctor had chosen to save a life. The council has also sent something else, Hannah added, her voice becoming more serious. They have officially renamed the Non-Interference Treaty. It is now called the Lee Clause. Medical professionals can now intervene in emergency situations to save lives, regardless of species or political considerations. Minji felt tears prick her eyes. They named it after me? You changed their law, Taeyong said simply. You showed them that compassion must sometimes supersede protocol. They learned that lesson, even if it took a dragon army to teach it. A young human woman approached nervously. She was one of the new medical students from Earth. Dr. Lee, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're ready when you are. Of course. Minji wiped her eyes and straightened her coat. No longer a simple nurse's uniform, but the formal robes of a draconian ambassador. Hannah, will you join us? The students would love to meet you. I would be honored, Hannah said. They walked together through crystal hallways filled with light. Human students and dragon students mingled freely, sharing knowledge and stories. Some studied anatomy, using holographic displays. Others practiced mixing medicines using techniques from both cultures. In the greeting hall, 20 new students from Earth stood in a nervous cluster. Their eyes went wide when they saw Minji enter with Taeyong and Hannah flanking her. Welcome, Minji said warmly. I know you're far from home and probably feeling overwhelmed. I felt the same way when I first arrived. But I promise you, the next few months will change your life in ways you cannot imagine. One student, a young man with anxious eyes, raised his hand. Dr. Lee, is it true that you were arrested for saving a dragon? That you gave up everything? Minji paused, considering her answer. I didn't give up everything. I gave up one life to gain another. The life I have now is richer and fuller than anything I had before. I learned that sometimes the right choice looks like the wrong choice until time proves otherwise. Another student spoke up. Are you afraid? Being so far from Earth, surrounded by creatures so much more powerful than us. Minji looked at Hannah, who nuzzled her gently with her massive snout. She looked at Taeyong, whose ancient eyes held wisdom and kindness. She looked around at the dragons and humans working together, building something new. No, she said honestly, I'm not afraid. I'm hopeful. That evening, as the three suns set and the floating mountains cast long shadows, Minji received a message on her datapad. It was from Ambassador June Kim back at the Galactic Council. Dr. Lee, the message read, we have received a distress call from the Voltan system. A plague has broken out, and they have no one with the expertise to treat it. They are requesting your help specifically. The mission is dangerous and requires traveling through disputed space. Will you go? Minji looked at the message for a long moment. Another impossible choice. Another risk. Another chance to help someone who desperately needed it. She began typing her response. I will leave immediately. Please send all available medical data. Hannah landed beside her, sensing her mood. You are leaving? Someone needs help, Minji said simply. Hannah's wings spread wide. Then I will come with you. You saved me once. Now I will help you save others. Taeyong appeared in the doorway. The Draconian fleet stands ready to escort you. Where humanity's healers go, dragons will follow. Minji felt warmth spread through her chest. She was no longer alone. She had allies, friends, family across species and cultures. Together, they would face whatever challenges came next. She looked out the purple sky, where stars were beginning to appear. Somewhere out there, people were suffering. People needed help. The end.